ad copies in the US. They don't get it, right? They send an ad that's really impactful and has made tons of money for them over their hair, and it fails. It fails for a reason. Why? Because your target audience is now experienced other things in life, and they have changed. So it's not the same individual that you're dealing with, even though they're from the Caribbean, right? The experiences have helped shape how we respond to stuff. And really identifying story, developing a timeline, identifying your target audience, and then always staying on narrative. Those would be my tips, and hiring a very great publicist.
Speaking of publicists, Ms. Harris, can you help us understand, talk about a press release? You know, so this press release goes to who and serves what purpose? And if not the press release, what will be the ideal item, the ideal format that you would say? Because we all think press release is the way to get out to the press, and the press spreads the word for us. So if not the press release, what strategy do you suggest?
Tell them the secret. Suzanne's like this. Don't say it. Don't say it. So, just like anything, social media has changed the dynamics of a lot of things. And truth be told, Suzanne and I, another shameless plug, kind of embarked upon our going to all of the mainstream media outlets. Now we're working with Caribbean and Black press to find out how we can be a resource to them. Like, how do we get you the information? What format, what time? You know, because back in the day, we used to call people and say, hey, I got this great client, you know, she's doing X, Y, and Z, or you can go out to lunch with that editor or assignment desk person. Nobody wants to meet with us anymore, you know? So most of the media outlets have told us, except for one the other day, we were on the Time Out magazine, and she said she still likes press releases. But most outlets are not reading press releases. Because if you get 1,000 of them, how are you going to read all of them throughout the day and tell the news, right? So we have, I know for myself, I think Suzanne has kind of scaled back in terms of, you know, those press releases. So packaging the story is what, you know, I have started doing. So I may do a Q&A with Kimber, I may do a Q&A with Jerry, Asa, Graylin, get all of the bullet points, get all of the things that they're, you know, about them or that they're sharing, and then say that they're doing an event. So I have for Black Business Month, I did a couple of Q&As. Kimber's actually going to be featured in in Orlando Business Journal. Asa's got a couple of things coming up. I do a Q&A, and they hate the Q&A. The client usually hates the Q&A. So sometimes we have to we have to kind of, you know, pull teeth or voice note it to just get the information.
So we're not the only one that hates the Q&A.
Oh, yeah. That's got the Q&A as well. So you got the Q&A, you have your headshot, you may have a video, right? And say you're doing a launch of your new magazine. So I'm going to put down at the bottom when the launch is, how much it costs, the website, all the information, and then I may do a small bio on the person and put that. That gets sent to the media, and they love it because they didn't have to write it. So the first time that this happened to me was with Miami Herald. So that was when Terrence Shepard, I'm pretty sure he's at WLRN, but he was an editor at the Herald, and had an article that came on the front page of the Herald, and I'm like, I'm reading it, but the first thing that caught my eye was it said staff reporter. And I'm reading it, I'm like, this sounds really familiar. I was like, wait a minute, I wrote this. What do you mean staff reporter? So I called Terrence, and I said, hey Terrence, just want to say thank you, you know, thanks for the article and everything. I said, but, you know, I saw the staff reporter article on the front page of the Herald. Like, what's up with that? And he said, you saw what? And I said, it was on the front page of the, and when I said front page, I stopped myself, and I said, and I just called to say thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.
So we laugh about that because he remembers that. But so a lot of times, you know, because the media houses are dwindling, they don't necessarily, and especially unfortunately, your black press, maybe your Hispanic press, or, you know, even the news stations, you know, they don't have enough people to cover everything. So if you give them kind of a package story, they make one or two changes, you're fine with that as long as it goes on the front page or it gets posted or, you know, something like that. But your client still wants that press release. You guys still want that press release because that's something that you might send out in constant contact. That's something that you're going to want to put on the website. But that might not be what we're sending to you either. So when a lot of my clients found out, they're like, you didn't send a press release. But you got the article, right? So we're good with that. So that would be something.
Kimberly?
I just want to talk about the value of what Yvette does, and I would just publicly thank her for what she's done for me and my exposure. So my platform has substantially been raised. My profile has been raised by the articles, this Q&A activity.
That she doesn't like filling out when I said
It's homework, right? Because you know why? Because I'll tell you why. So the questions are, they make you, it takes a lot of time, that's the main reason. Because you don't want to say something stupid because we already know how people play rollback the tape. So you have to be careful how you answer these questions. You want to be candid, but you don't want to be careless. And so I just appreciate it because, the whole thing, if you Google me, there's a variety. There's the nerdy clients that I represent, and there's some fun ones, but these articles that Yvette does help to make me a more personable attorney. So I think that's important.
Wonderful.
Make sure you answer those questions.
So I ask you,
And I have one more plug too. I would say that Yvette used to start sending me these PR type of emails that would say, hey, they're looking for someone to speak on finances, or they're looking for someone to speak on accounting. And I just said, I don't have time for this, man. I don't have time for this. And then once she sent me one, she said, you know what, Jerry, they used to have somebody writing for the finance corner. Why don't you consider writing for the finance corner? And I said, you know what? Why don't I do it? And so I did it, and I wrote 12 articles for this online newspaper, and now I can say I'm a publisher, right? I can say, and now I have it posted on my LinkedIn profile, and I get a lot of people sending me an email from LinkedIn because they saw this article that I wrote, and so it's creating that footprint online that you need, that you might not necessarily understand that you need. So I will say thank you for that because I get a lot of PR from those articles. Lioness Magazine.
anyone else line up? Thank you, Nick. So I want to ask you a question, and I kind of circle back. So, from each one of your perspective, your professional perspective, give us one rule. Give us your cardinal one time. I'm giving every client this rule. This is my CPA rule. This is my intellectual attorney rule. This is my brand specialist rule. This is my rule of thumb. This is the rule that when I get clients as a publicist, as a communication strategist, I'm telling this is the rule. I'll tell you one thing that in our moment of Yvette thanks. None of us like the red pen teacher. Yvette's our red pen teacher. So you sense of her, she's like, no, that word is out. You need to go out. That's too much. And so your paragraph went to a sentence, and you're like, what's all my stuff? So please, give us same order. Let's give us your cardinal, your singular rule that you live by to your clients. You always repeat to your different clients.
I'd say since the target audience today is startups, right? So most of you guys are starting your business or in the beginning stages of your business. And I think one of the cardinal rules that I have is business versus personal. Everybody starts a business and they're mixing business and personal things. You start a business and you start using your personal bank account, you're using your personal credit card. I would recommend that you segregate the two. Go to Office Depot, get an accounting ledger. They have these accounting booklets that you can purchase to keep track of things separately. go to the bank and open up a separate bank account and fund the bank account with some money. So the same money that you're using from your personal account to fund some of these expenses, open up a separate business account and not commingle the business and the personal, because it really hurts a lot of businesses when it's time for the accounting. It hurts the business when it's time to do the tax return. And 9 times out of 10, most people are keeping track of everything in some shoebox, right? And then when it's time to do the tax return, they can't figure it out. Create a separate bank account, use a separate credit card for the business, and treat it as a separate entity outside of yourself. So that would be my biggest nugget for most startups. Even 10, 15-year businesses still kind of do that, but I won't name anybody in the audience. But I will say that segregating personal versus business, I think, is a lot of struggle for a lot of businesses. And I would say, even in the beginning stages of my business, I was doing the personal versus business, right? And I'm an accountant, but over time, okay, wait a minute, pay yourself a salary, create a separate bank account for the business, use a separate credit card, and treat it separately and let it have its own checks and balances outside of your personal self, which I think is really important for most startup businesses.
I would say for mine, this is a passion of mine, to help particularly business owners of color to protect what belongs to them. We have a long history of having things stolen from us. Our creative content, it was something like 34 years before the first person of color could own their own patent in this country. So just imagine, for 34 years or so, you were inventing things that could have generated wealth, for your family and those generations, and you didn't get credit for it. So I would say right now it would be just to stress the importance of speaking with someone who can help you tie it down. We naturally share things and we get taken advantage of too often. And so I would just say that I stress to people the importance of knowing their value and just being honest with clients when they come to me about whether what they have is something that's worth investing in. Sometimes, not always, but I'm the one that will say, you go back to the drawing board.
Wonderful. Mr. Seeley.
I would tell my clients to trust the process, and that not because you can do it means that you should do it. Forever telling them that, and to stay in their lane all the time.
That's a transferable rule. Driving the highway, and you're in business. Ms. Harris.
So my biggest one is nothing is off the record. Nothing is off the record. Oh, I know. When I tell you the amount of clients that I've had that have said something, done an interview, and I specifically said, whatever you don't want out there, don't say it. There was a movie years ago when I was living in Harlem, and I did some work with an actor named Gano Grills. For those of you that are younger, probably don't remember. Ed probably remembers. But it was a movie called In Too Deep with LL Cool J. Gano was the first, I think he was the first character to die in the movie. And he and I, we met, and I had lined up all this press for him. And I said, listen, the cardinal rule is don't say anything that you don't want the press to print. There's nothing off the record. If they say, hey, just tell us about this. If you don't want anybody to know that. And I mean, literally, I media trained him for 2 days. I went over and over and over and over. He does an interview with Upscale Magazine. He calls me 2 days later. Now, she was already on deadline. So back then, they would do the tear sheet. It was already, the article was written. It was nothing, even if I wanted to, I couldn't do anything, because it was written already. It was written, it was filed, and it was gonna come out, in the magazine in a couple months. He wanted to change his answers because he felt like something that he said, he didn't want people to know. absolutely nothing that I can do. The article's gonna come out, you know, and he got mad at me. I mean, he was furious with me. And I said, well, you're not paying attention? What did I say? He's, well, you know, but she was really nice. She was asking me these questions, and the thing that he didn't want out there, I think she had asked him something about who he wanted to work with, and I guess it came across more so than, not that I respect this person as an actor, and that's why I want to work, but I was really, you know, he's really trying to get with her, and wanted to date her, he thought she was beautiful, and so my thing, and I work with politicians, I work with, you know, just all types of people. If you don't want people to know, don't say it, because I don't want you to call me the next morning for me to try to figure out how to get it back, because I can't.
You're not the fixer.
Although I can, some stuff, but that's not what I want to do in life.
So with those questions, I'm going to open it up to your questions in the audience. And I want to preface this that we've gone through our thank yous, and we want to comment on the greatness of the panelists. So this segment is for the questions. A question has a question mark at the end that you want to answer from the front. You know, it's not, you know, I agree, you know, this is not the moment for the amens. I just want to acknowledge I agree with Yvette, and I agree with Kimra. So if you have a question, you know, I see this all, you know, it's like, and it's a short question, not a long soliloquy. So please, does anyone have any questions at this time? Or did I just eliminate everybody? Wonderful. Yes, sir.
So this question is really for Yvette. Social media, especially Facebook. Are you?
So you could ask Ace of social media. Yeah.
I could ask
Yeah.
the young man too. But I find, for me, that Facebook actually works a lot in helping to brand who I am and to get new business, right? Are you working with your clients a lot on the digital space? And what kind of strategies are you developing for them?
Well, I work with her clients in the digital space. So yes, we do, as a team, do provide that service. And if you don't mind, Ed, could I ask him a question?
Yes.
What kind of business do you do?
That's a good one. My primary business is I'm an art advisor and a curator. So if that answers your question.
So for me not knowing much about that space, it would tell me if you're getting business generated from Facebook, you're speaking to a specific audience, right? A specific age group, someone that's going to be living on Facebook for more of substance content, something that they can read, appreciate, engage with, sit with, take in. If you had told me that you were on Instagram and getting traffic and business there, you would have been dealing with a younger audience, somebody looking for instant gratification, and we start identifying touch points along the way. So what we would do for you is create compelling campaigns and maybe tweak some of your ads to see which one responds better with your audience and over others, right? It's called a split A/B test. And it's as simple as maybe changing a copy on the same ad and having a different call to action, or changing an image with the same call to action and testing it in the same ad set. And then you can, in real time, be able to switch what's not working for what is working, maximizing your impact, and definitely putting you in a more cost-effective position in terms of getting that return on investment.
So a follow-up question on the branding side is, are you doing that strategy around branding digitally also? So that, say, for my case, what I'd be most concerned about is the business page, not so much the personal page, or I have a blog that I'm actually speaking to a certain audience, right? And I'm very concerned about how I be perceived by that audience, right? So branding is always a very important issue. Right? So I find that there are not a lot of black folks in that space. So, and there's, by the way, just a whole lot of opportunity for black people to be in that art space, because contemporary black art is the fastest growing aspect of the contemporary art market, right? So there's a lot of opportunity to work that area.
So what I would suggest to you, if you have already identified the opportunity in the space and have already positioned yourself to be perceived as someone that's successful in the space, is to now offer the community access to the information and path that you've taken, creating an entirely different revenue model for you online. Something that can live online, something that you can create a mastermind group around, something that you can create a closed Facebook group around, something that translates into people wanting to be part of it and putting you in a position to now charge a membership fee. Reach out to other influencers within that space and host weekly calls. Like, that is what people are responding to online at this present time. And if you have already identified the need for it, based on the bare fact that the numbers that you have quoted already show that there's definitely an opportunity and a lack of participation, you can position yourself as that person and build a perception of interacting with you as the person that can show them the way.
All right, thank you for your answer. Appreciate it. Any other questions? Yes, Ms. McDowell.
Jerry, my fantastic CPA. I want to know, what is the difference between an S corporation and an LLC? Perhaps that's a question for Kimber, but I'm an S corp, as you know, but I want to know the difference.
I'd say that the LLC is a limited liability corporation or company. That is it's a new form of entity structure, while the corporation has always been in existence for quite some time. We have a lot of people come to us and try to determine which one should they be, right? Should they be an S corp or should they be an LLC? I will say that they both give you liability protection. So, for example, instead of doing business under your own name, you want to do business under one of these structures so that if there's ever a lawsuit or something, you're protected. So they both offer that. They both offer the opportunity for you to have multiple owners. Here's where the differences are. An S corp can only be U.S. shareholders. You cannot have a foreign shareholder in an S corp. So that's one of the differences. While an LLC, you can't have foreign owners. Another difference is that the S corp is limited to owners no more than 100, while an LLC can have an unlimited amount of owners. So it's just in some definitions, and one is whether or not you're foreign or not. One is the number of owners that you can have. Seems to be the biggest issues. Also, times you find that it depends on the type of business that you're doing. So, for example, when people are buying real estate, it's better to create an LLC versus an S corp, right? So that's two of the major differences.
So my other question is, which one do you prefer?
Depends on what you're doing.
I knew you were going to say that.
It depends. It depends on what you're doing. It depends if you have employees. If somebody is operating as a business as a solo owner, without a lot of contracts, without a lot of employees, and they just want a simple structure, an LLC may work. Maybe not making more than $100,000, an LLC may work. But when you start getting into 2, 3, 4, 500,000 in revenues, you have employees, you have contracts, you have a lease agreement, some of your customers are government, it's better to be an S corp as opposed to an LLC because of some of the other benefits of it. So, again, it really depends.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
So our host here asked your wonderful so incredible, like, you know, stay in your lane, business is business, nothing is off your record. They were so good. I was wondering if there are maybe a few others at the tip of your tongue that you can share with us. I would really like that.
Well, for me, I think sometimes mine is be open to people knowing your story. You'd be surprised how many people, you know, have a great product or a service or an event, and they're really a hidden secret. Like, you know, and in this day and time, we need those positive stories. I have clients that have a fear of doing interviews, you know, so we go through a media training, and they still have a fear. You know, but if you want people, and then they want me to be the spokesperson for their business, but no one can sell or be inspired or be as excited as you are about your business, you know, so you have to put yourself out there, you know, so that's one of the things that if you're doing something that you really, really love, hopefully that will be something that will either come naturally or that will be something that you will grow into that space and that voice to say, you know what, I want everybody to know about this because what I have is a great thing.
Another one of mine is secure the bags. I mean, I tell my clients that all the time, secure the bags, because you're giving information, you're sharing your creative ideas for free. And especially, another thing is if you're a business owner and you hire graphic teams, interns, you just probably didn't even think about having them sign a copyright assignment for the things that they're creating. So, example, I go on Fiverr and I hire somebody to do my logo. And there's no language in the contract that says that the logo is actually my logo. So this happens a lot with the weddings. If you hire a photographer to come shoot your wedding, they actually own the photos. You own a copy of the photos. So whenever you're hiring, I know Ed, I know it's the president. So when you're
That
asking
was
for
your brain exploding.
yeah, so if you hire someone to do creative work for you under copyright law, unless they transfer ownership to you, you don't own it. So just you paying that person doesn't mean you're purchasing the ownership rights. So my expression is secure the bags. Make sure you have contracts for your interns, you know, for the people you're collaborating with. And another thing that goes wrong is business partners who come to me and say, we want a trademark. Well, who's we? And how do you define what happens to the trademark if you guys break up? You know, who gets to own the trademark that you both pay for then? Who gets to continue to use it? You see this a lot in music groups, the Commodores, the lead singer just kept going out saying it was Commodores and it was just him. So, you know, so you want to have contracts that talk about the worst case scenario, secure the bags.
I think I have a few actually. One, I'd say if your business is moving along, invest in QuickBooks. And a lot of people say, oh, I don't know how to use it. There's a lot of tutorials online on YouTube. I think for the price for QuickBooks, you can buy it for about $200 for the QuickBooks Pro. I think it's a great software to help you track your income and expenses. And it also helps you to generate those reports that sometimes the bank may want, or if you go get a certification, they may ask you for your balance sheet or your profit and loss. You know, you don't necessarily have to go to an accountant and pay all this money. You can invest in QuickBooks and just get some training sessions on how to use the software. That probably is the most advantageous. Invest in QuickBooks. It's a $200-300 software. Most large companies are paying thousands of dollars for their accounting software. I think QuickBooks is affordable. It's the first thing that I bought when I started my business, and I would encourage you to get QuickBooks. Even if it sits on the shelf somewhere in your house, invest in it and go online onto YouTube and learn how to use it, or pay a bookkeeper or accountant a few hours just to train you on how to use it so that you can use it for yourself. That's one advice that I would give. The second thing that I would give is think of the end in mind. And you made a really good point about partners, and I'm just sharing my own experience. You know, when we first started, we had an operating agreement, and we were initially an LLC. So you mentioned the question, why an LLC? So it was 3 partners, and we created an LLC, but for some reason, somebody said, hey, let's create an operating agreement. If you have partners, create an operating agreement if you have an LLC, because a year and a half later, and I think you met my partner, when we first started off, a year and a half into being in business, my partners decided to depart for personal reasons. And I decided, it was not my idea to start the firm, but because we had that agreement, it actually spelled out how we would end if somebody wanted to leave. And as they left, I became a sole, what they call a single member LLC. I was the only person left owning the LLC. And sometimes you don't want to be a single member LLC in a company like mine where there's a lot of lawsuits. And so that's why I decided to convert to become an S corporation. So I would say think with the end in mind. If you have partners, get an operating agreement. I know sometimes it's your best friend and, oh my God, we're going to be in business forever. Or your husband or your wife, and you go through a divorce, she becomes a housewife, you don't feel like she's contributed enough. All kinds of things happen. We see so many different scenarios. The other tip I would give is a business plan. And I know a lot of people don't think that it's important, but I think sometimes you think, as a technician, I can do hair. I should start a hair salon. I'm an accountant. I should start an accounting firm. I'm in marketing. I should start a marketing firm. But as you go through the life cycle of owning a business, there's so much more than just what you can do as a technician. I had to learn how to market my business. I had to learn about financing because I have employees in my customers taking 6 months to pay me. Now I need a line of credit. The business plan will help you to start thinking about some of the things that are outside of just what you know as a technician, right? So the business plan got me to start thinking about, okay, look at the employee labor laws. Look at who my target audience is. Who's my target audience long term? What types of services do I want to offer? What type of customers do I want to take initially when I start off? Those are not the customers that I want 5 years later. So it makes you start thinking about different things and aspects of the business that you necessarily will not look at. So yeah, I'm a great accountant. I think I'm a great accountant. But I had to learn who my target audience was and who I really wanted to work with. And the business plan forced me to look at those types of things. So I think a business plan is a great start if you're starting a business. It'll force you to look at the things that you're not thinking about.
Wonderful. Question?
Thank you. Just really quickly, how important do you think it is for, whether you're just starting out or you've been in business for years, for a business owner to have like an advisory board or an advisory group, someone that they can go and, throw ideas off of that, they may have more experience than you, or they may be coming from a different angle than you.
So I'm not sure if you necessarily need an advisory board or group, but it is crucial, I think, to have mentors and just good people in your circle that you can call at 3 o'clock in the morning. Because that's when you get all of your great ideas. So you definitely have to have someone that you can call and say, listen, I got this great idea, because they're going to get you off the Brooklyn Bridge, or they're going to get on the Brooklyn Bridge with you, because it's a great idea.
I'm literally writing you a text about her.
So it definitely, and then it gives you a sense of comfort, and it reinforces that you do have a good idea, because sometimes, we're not really sure, and you second guess yourself. So I would encourage you to have a mentor, several types, a creative mentor, business mentor, a spiritual mentor, a mentor that's just going to say, listen, you need a break, you need to do some self-care, you need to chill, So definitely all of those people, because we talked about that yesterday. We don't necessarily, even if we have an office space or we work from home, we don't have the same kind of camaraderie that you do when you go to a 9 to 5. There is no water cooler for us. There's a Starbucks, right? But there's no, so you need that kind of being able to, share those ideas, have somebody, give you a little pat on the back and say, okay, it's gonna be okay, you're gonna get till Friday. So definitely those mentors are very key. And whatever you call them, they can be an advisory board, mentors, friends, it's very key to
I think it's key to know something that Kimber brought up earlier. That's still intellectual property. Necessary. And so be mindful that, you choose your circle carefully, because the information that you share with that advisory group or that mentor is intellectual property that you once you give it out, you don't necessarily own because you haven't retained it. So be mindful of that. And Suzanne talked to you again like many years ago. And I saw your hand, so I want to share something. I read about these groups, and especially out in the California area, where they're sharing homes. These business owners or single business owners are sharing residencies because they're using that as a think tank. And so they're getting with like-minded thought thinkers, thinkers, and sharing ideas. But they're also doing the same thing by protecting their interests. They have signed affidavits and waivers amongst each other to ensure that my idea is spoken publicly in the group, and everybody knows this is my idea. And so just be mindful when we talk, when we're sharing ideas. And I'm in the ideal phase, and I'm in this process now. You should be very careful who you share information with. Just give them a lot of words that mean nothing.
Thank you. Question for the panel. New business, great idea. You know that the product will work, but like a lot of upstart businesses, they don't have capital. What suggestions could you give them on how to gain that capital?
Since you talked about a new idea or new product, I think your first stop, even if you don't talk to me, should be an intellectual property attorney. I happen to do free consultations just because I realize there is a learning curve before people know what they want. So many people call and they think they need a patent when they really need a trademark, or they're asking about a copyright when they probably should have a trade secret. So I think the first thing is to understand what you have to offer, and a lot of times, once you do that, you can secure your intellectual property rights. Somebody will advise you as to how to protect them before you make an offering, because maybe you'll get investors. So you want to lock it down first, make sure you own it before you start sharing your idea and looking for funding.
And I'll just add that because Kimber is an intellectual property attorney, you're protected by talking to an attorney by those rights. Different than talking to a friend.
Yeah, right. The Florida bar, a lot of times clients will say, well, do you need to sign an NDA? No, because the Florida bar has that covered. We have all kinds of regulations for attorneys, so they trust me, we're covered. Just you understand.
I'll say that what I normally see is in initial stages of the idea, most people self-fund because the banks aren't necessarily lending unless it's one of those, cash cow type of ideas. So most people tend to self-fund either with their credit cards or taking money from their lines of credit. And I would just share, if you're going to do that, I would still create the entity. I mean, if you're willing to invest in yourself and your idea, you can invest in at least creating the entity structure. And the only reason why I say that is before you start funding it through your personal bank account or your credit card, remember what I mentioned earlier about separating business versus personal. Sometimes people want to know how much you've invested into this idea. And so if you segregate it in a separate entity, it becomes deductible. It's a business venture, right? And then you can quantify the information a little bit easier when you're trying to show people how much you've invested in. Because sometimes before somebody will invest in it, they want to know how much skin you have in the game, right? And so the verifiable way to do that is usually a tax return, usually some financial statements, right? Because a lot of people come with great ideas, right? But how do I know that you've invested in that idea outside of just a pen and paper?
And that's a great point, and just to piggyback, a lot of investors won't invest unless they know that you have protected the intellectual property.
There are also grants that are available for startup businesses, especially in Miami-Dade County. I believe that every City, Liberty City, Overtown, I'm pretty sure there's some in Broward. The commissioners, or county commissioners, do a mom and pop grant every year. It's usually around in April, I believe. There's an application process, and they give you up to $5,000. There are different programs that the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau has for businesses that want to kind of go through that process of learning about businesses with some financial resources with the Beacon Council, Miami Bayside Foundation.
And also, good evening, everyone. My name is Petra Brennan with the Greater Miami Convention and Business Bureau. And we have an initiative called our Tourism Business Enhancement Initiative. And actually, that initiative really tries to connect small business with the tourism industry. Really, oftentimes there's a disconnect in how a lot of small business can work alongside with the tourism industry. It's $1 billion industry. So this initiative really, it's about capacity support. We work a lot with our heritage neighborhoods. A lot of mom and pop businesses there. So we work with the Miami Bayside Foundation. They offer a small business workshop, which really provides core business classes around business plan, marketing. And at the end of the 10-day session, there's an opportunity to do a presentation and pitch for a loan opportunity. So like Yvette mentioned, there are many unique ways and opportunities for a small business to thrive and to get capital. And absolutely right, the other panelists mentioned you also have to invest in yourself and have skin in the game. So yes, so there are ways that I'm free to connect folks that are to learn more about their business and how we can help them thrive and go further.
So I would also encourage you just to research, because there's so much information that's available that wasn't available when I was starting out in 1990, because we didn't really have the internet. But there's a lot of great information if you're a nonprofit organization. The Miami-Dade County Cultural Affairs has a grant for special events, community events. So there's definitely resources, and unfortunately, we don't normally either know about it or take advantage of it.
What's the deadline for that?
Which one?
What are you talking about?
It's ongoing deadline. So the community grant, we're in our first quarter right now. We have about 45 grants to review by next week. So you just have to go to the site, see what, where it falls in, where your event might be, your initiative, your after-school program, that little group, Steel Orchestra might be Carnival now. So you definitely just have to do the research. You have to ask, because if you don't ask people, you'd be surprised when you ask. People go, why did they have a business? But wait a minute, let me introduce you to so-and-so, because they have a grant, or they have a loan, or, and I find a lot of people don't put stuff and put it out there, so then people don't know.
Okay, I have two quick questions, one from Vivek. And if you look at the question, how much leverage do you have? Can you actually ask them to give you a list of questions that they want to ask your client, and then they just basically stick to that? Is that possible? That's one of my questions. And I have another question now.
So no. So that is why I always try to make sure that my client is very well prepared. So what I do is I tell them, have 3 talking points that you want with, because unfortunately you're not always going to get the easiest person that's going to interview. There are some people that are great people to be interviewed by, right? You got your Javon Straters, you got your Dickie Mohans, and they're going to ask the engaging questions. And then sometimes you have people that we give the information to, we give them all the talking points in terms of the media. I'm not quite sure that you do that. So then they're kind of struggling with the interview. When you go into your interview with 3 points that you know that you want in, no matter if it's a good person interviewing you or not so great interviewer, you got your 3 points that you're going to make sure. But you don't want to leave the interview going, I didn't mention the website. I didn't mention this. I didn't mention this. What I think everybody loves about Rodney Baltimore, you can sound crazy. If you get downstairs and Rodney's got you sounding so crazy. Not everybody's has that platform like Rodney where he but you don't have the advantage of, you can't even ask them what the question is, because you should know, you pitched them, you pitched your client should be prepared.
Okay, so this has to do with the digital world now. How do you separate, you have two different businesses, how do you separate them online and they're not related really?
How do you separate something online as not related?
Well, I mean, I have two different businesses per se, and I want to keep them separate. But unfortunately, both have my name already, so I'm trying to figure out what should I do and how should I.
And they're not relatable businesses.
No.
Right, so right there, it's the definition is right there, that the businesses aren't relatable, and you can exist in two worlds. It just falls back on the story that you tell, and how you compartmentalize each of the businesses and the ads and the messaging that you're sending out for each. Do you mind me asking what type of businesses they are?
So I'm an attorney on the one hand, and then on the other hand, I'm a writer.
So what do you write?
Poetry and, books for children. I was an immigration consultant, but that's on that other side.
So could I ask, why is there a disconnect? Why do you feel that you have to be on opposite ends of the spectrum to exist in the digital space?
I suppose I just saw that it would create less confusion, and I would really want to separate them. I want to have a completely different professional image for my attorney role, and then another image for my writer role, which I could play with per se if I want to. But I'm very concerned about that because of the Florida bar stuff that Timber is talking about, and being more conservative and all of that on that side, and then on the other side. So I've always, so I've not done anything because I'm not sure what to do yet. I'm still thinking about that.
Have you tried to be have you tried to give the attorney a real personal approach where it gives you the opportunity to insert your expressive side, your poetry? Because I find it very striking that an attorney in such a kind of cookie cutter type environment is going to be able to be expressive and tell and give me this poetry that I get lost in, right? And if you define that story from the very beginning, my expectation of interacting with you, the individual, is going to be laid out for me from the beginning, right? So if on the poetry side, you're an attorney that's expressive, and on the attorney side, you get things done. It's two qualities and characteristics of you that you can play on and speak to two different completely audiences. And I think that you will be able to exist. But for me, it comes back to your story.
I understand your concerns, because I started off as a rapper. I was both people. Oh yeah, people around the law sheet is real funny right now. Really good. I'm so serious. So I did this until I had 2 daughters, one of them is back there. But my oldest daughter turned 26 long before I thought about going to law school. But now, would I have a tab on my website to have hip hop about IP? No. So I understand the concern. It's still a part of you, but I think I'm toying with this because I think a lot of us have this creative stuff. But maybe just have it under a different name. Just so you can still tell your story somewhere in that way. At least you can separate it and have separate pages without people would know once they talk to you. But for branding purposes, maybe just give it a different name.
Yeah, so I mean, I was thinking, I was just going forward, I was right under a student. So that's what I was thinking I would do.
Create a character.
Right, I was just going forward, and then whatever is there, I just leave it there, but then in the future, I was.
Right.
Wonderful. Anyone, any other questions? Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Raul Alvarez. I work with Jared as one of the presenters out there. Hi, Cassandra. My sometimes a loan from one company to another, and they wanted to know if that's income taxable, if not taxable, and is there a way to have a loan agreement? So my question to Jeremy is, what is the legal aspect of tax law to make it legally binding between a loan agreement versus withdrawing money from the company? What are the
You gotta get that technical, right?
yes.
So, I guess to Raul's point, we get a lot of clients that have multiple businesses, so they're not necessarily startups. They may have 2 or 3 different businesses, and they want to lend money from one business to another, right? And they want to put it as a loan on the books of the entity that is lending, right? And then of course, they want the other company to pay it back. And one of the things that we've been trying to tell them is that for it to be bona fide and to be legal in the eyes of the IRS or the court of law, they would actually have to create a loan agreement. So that's one of the recommendations that we give. We give a recommendation for them to create a loan agreement and to have teeth in it. So what do you normally have when you have a loan agreement? There's an interest rate that's tied to it, and you're making interest payments. So one of the things that we've been recommending is to create the loan agreement, tie an interest rate to the agreement, and make sure that you're at the very least making interest-only payments if you're not repaying the principal. So that would be my recommendation.
Tanya, I sit here and I humor myself sometimes. I just saw myself from one side of the table to the other side of the table, you know, silently talking about it.
But if you want it to be legal, that's the IRS.
I do get it. Jerry, I just want to ask a question. You said earlier about changing the status from a utility status from an LLC to an S corp. So that can be done?
Yes, actually, Sundays has a very simplified, let me start by saying, you could contact an attorney to assist you in that process because it is an entity transfer or selection. However, Sundays, for the Florida Department of Corporations, they actually have a very cookie cutter form where you can convert your LLC to a corporation, and then you would ask the IRS to ask to be treated as a small business corporation. But I would still make sure that you speak to somebody because that's the best avenue for you.
Always speak to the attorney. She said speak to the attorney. The attorney,
Or
the
CPA.
the attorney, the CPA, the brand specialist, the communication, specialist said, speak to them first. Any other questions? Any other questions? No. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I don't know if this was covered earlier, but how soon would you suggest that small business starts looking at the MWBE certification process? And if that's something that they know they want to get into, how soon do you think they should start preparing for that?
So that's an interesting one. I don't want you to bring that up unless somebody asks. But I like the idea, remember I said earlier, to create a business plan in mind. When you first start off, because it really forces you to think about where you want to go and what you want to do. When we first started off, we actually applied for a bunch of certifications. And we applied for minority business certifications, we applied for women-owned certifications, because I learned that our target audience long-term would be the government. So if you know you want to work with the federal government or local government or state government, you can start as soon as you begin. In fact, a lot of people start off their businesses getting contracts with the government, and it's usually through a certification process. Before you rush to do the WMBMN, one as you mentioned, find some that are free. So for example, most government entities, you can apply and it's a free certification, while some of these other agencies may require you to pay a fee. Miami-Dade County is a great example. If you want to be registered as a small business, you can find the code that they have associated with the type of business that you have, and you can register to be a small business. The state of Florida also has a certification. They have a minority and a women certification. Go to the state of Florida Office of Supply Diversity, and you can apply and get that certification. The federal government also has certifications. They have an 8A program, they have a women-owned small business program, and they have a hub zone program, depending on where your business is located. And there's a lot of organizations that can help you apply to these programs and give you some insight. SBA.gov is a great place to go, a great resource. The SBA also has different P-tax centers, PTAC, around the U.S. that'll help you apply for some of these certifications for free. And Miami-Dade County has a really great small business certification department that'll help you fill out the application. And then there's people who charge, but you can definitely go to those agencies and they can help you do it for free.
So there are resources available, governmental agencies that are available. There's also, the federal government also has a program for DVEs. Disadvantaged business enterprise. And so there's a lot of them. And the county has DVE programs. There's a lot of programs that are available to small businesses, locally, statewide, and nationally. Do I have any more questions? I want to allow the panelists, before we get to give a closing remark if they have any. But I will make sure we have asked all the questions that are on the floor. So I want to thank the panelists and give you each the opportunity to say if you want to share, if you scripture or quote.
Thank you, Ed and Yvette, for inviting Tri-Merge to be part of this. We're really excited that we're able to join, and hopefully that the audience was able to get some kind of nugget from this opportunity. So we are Tri-Merge Consulting Group. We are a CPA firm based in Miami, Florida. You can visit us at www.trimergecpa.com. We also have www.trimergetax.com, and our phone number is 305-940-5344. We also have some brochures out there. So I would just say, in the beginning stages of starting a business, reach out to as many accountants and tax advisors and attorneys who have complimentary sessions, where they allow you to come and meet with them for like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever the case, where you can ask some of these questions up front before you jump into just going on to some biz and creating this entity and not necessarily understanding the tax implications of forming the entity. Go and get the free advice as much as you can and speak to as many people as possible so that you can get to understand what you do.
I also want to thank Yvette and Ed. This has been a great time with you all. I enjoy sharing with business owners. As mentioned, I do offer complimentary, I call it a discovery call. It's a 15-minute phone consultation just to discuss what intellectual property you might have and some general tips about what you might do to get started with protecting it. My website, again, my name is Kimra Major Morris, and my website is majormorrislaw.com. You can sign up for the discovery call through the site. So just click on the contact tab and you'll be able to sign up for that. But just in parting, I wanted to say never underestimate the value of relationships in business. Because depending on the relationship, it can really propel you. You just don't know where it's going to take you. So I started 10 years ago, and 2 years into my practice, I was registering trademark markets foundation. This is trademarks, just based on relationships. Those things have helped tremendously with my business growth. Thank you.
I'd like to echo thanks for the opportunity to meet Ed for the first time tonight. So once again, we spoke on the phone before, but first time meeting. So definitely look forward to building relationships and utilizing that good relationships is really where I've been able to grow my business, through my relationships, my integrity, and my ability to under-promise and over-deliver. Really keeping my clients at the forefront and being as objective as I can be, respecting their dollar like if it was mine. And I think they have really grown to trust me and really kind of like go with whatever I say at this point. So I've been really blessed at this point. And I can only hope that all of you guys that are building your business and starting it do get something from what was presented here tonight. Do take from it the ability to go out and know that you can do it. And even in those challenging times, once you trust that process and believe in your product, believe in your idea, that there will always be an opportunity for you to move thank you to my other partners, and thank you guys for coming out and giving us the energy. Because to sit up here sometimes is really challenging when the room isn't really engaging. So thank you for the questions, and thank you for coming out here wanting to be better.
So we started cultural conversations back in the beginning of the year. Our first one was unpacking the politics of black hair. And we have held this, for the last 8 months or so. We kind of took the summer months off, but wanted to do something this month to celebrate and highlight Black Business Month. So I appreciate all of your support. Amina Harris, I think most of you know where to find me, 786-897-8854, harrispublicrelations.com. And hopefully, if you choose me or someone to tell your amazing stories so that we can know about your businesses that you're about to start or have operated now. So I appreciate you, Ed, Celie, Kimra, Jerry. Thank you to my colleagues and my friends and my mentors and my sounding boards and relationships are just very, very, very key. Thank you to Ms. Graylin and Lucretia for partnering with us to allow us in this beautiful space. Please do reach out to them if you want to use this space. And I think there's a couple other spaces I think you have access to in this building. And take this time to network, get someone's card, come up and speak with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I missed that comment you shared with me in the county. Yes.
So also in Miami-Dade County, I think it's broader as well. There's the Partners for Self-Employment. It's a free program, and you're able to sign up to that program over the course of about 6 weeks. And then you can apply for loans that do not go against your own credit. They don't look at your personal credit to apply for that loan, but you need to have some requirements to apply for a loan in order to get money. There's a program here in Miami, and I know they're throughout Miami-Dade County, and I believe also throughout Partners for Self-Employment. For us at OCYC, we are grateful to be a part of this experience tonight. We do professional development as part of our pillars that we want to build capacity in Overtown and for members in Overtown that serve Overtown. If you would, please make sure you have signed in on the registration sheets, and we'll keep you connected that way.
Thank you.
Could I say one thing before you say one thing? Guys, I run a young professional organization as well, and I urge you guys to check it out, even though when I tell you the name, you may think that it doesn't apply to you, but it's a great resource to tap into the young professional community here in Miami. It's called Miami Under 40, and it's young professionals 25 to 40. That's the core of the group. That does not mean that anyone over 40 is not present, okay? Because I myself am over 40. So, but check it out. It is a really engaging platform in Miami. We're about growing the young professional experience, exposing them to culture through lifestyle events. We have great partnerships, great programs for our members, and I urge you guys to just check it out online. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I just want to share that in my new journey as a business owner, it's really, it's actually challenging and sad that we have this type of audience. And we need to continue to spread the word. If you want to grow your business, spread the word of business, of opportunities for your businesses. And I know these continue to happen. There's a lot of organizations that have money to give. We continue to leave money on the table every year. Counties, state, and the federal government set aside funds to help businesses grow. And we don't have information, we don't share information, we don't use those opportunities, so they return the money back away, and then they leave they spend less money next year because they didn't use as much. So please, if you didn't get a chance to write down some of the great information that Jerry, Kimra, and Asa gave out, Suzanne has, and my good friend Petra has, please ask, because that information is money that's available, and the monies for this year ends in November.
Well, fiscal year for most organizations starts October 1st.
So that money is going to end, so there's still opportunity for us to apply for some of those grants, apply for some of those funds, and some of those loans before this fiscal year ends. Have a great night. Thank you all for coming.